Hello everyone, in this video I will cover the topic of API and how you would use it or you would consume it with Fetch. So I will start with defining what is an API and then a promise and then Fetch. So what are the purposes of using an API? It allows you to communicate with other services. It adds a functionality to the website. Think about, for example, a currency converter. You communicate with another service and you add the functionality to the website. It makes, of course, life easier for developers since you can use, for example, an existing API. There are three different types of API. You have the private API. It is designed to improve a service within an organization. You have a public API. This is available for all developers. It can be free or commercial. Commercial means you have to pay for it. And a partner. This is between partner and software integration is an example. This is the workflow of an API, how it works. So first, the client will make a request to the server using an HTTP verb. There are four main verbs: get, post, put, and delete. The client will make a request to the server using a certain method. It can be REST or SOAP. There are other methods available. REST means representational state transfer. This is an architecture style. This is the most popular option. And you have SOAP, which means Simple Object Access Protocol. It relies exclusively on XML. It means this is a more complex solution. Then the server will communicate with the database and will respond with the data within a certain format. It can be JSON, XML, or other formats. If you have the choice, you should opt for JSON since it's lightweight and easy to use. In order to use an API with Fetch, we first have to learn what a promise is. A promise is an object representing the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. The two most important words here are object and asynchronous. A promise accepts one parameter called executor, which accepts itself two parameters, resolved and reject. This is a convention to name it like this. A promise is dividing into two parts: the producing code and the consuming code. The producing code may take some time. This is why this is called an asynchronous operation. And the consuming code will wait for the result produced by the producing code. It is important to notice that the promise is either resolved or reject, so only one of both cases will be executed. If the promise is resolved, the promise is going to be resolved with the .then method. And if the promise is rejected, the promise will be rejected with the .catch method. So resolve and reject are normally wrapped within the condition. There are three different states of promise. Any state change is final, which is the same as saying that a promise is either resolved or rejected. So first, you are going to create the object promise. The state is pending and the result is not defined yet. If it is resolved, it's going to be resolved with a value with the .then method. The state will be fulfilled and you will have the value as the result. If it is rejected, you are going to catch the error. The state will be rejected and you will have the error as the result. Now that we have learned what a promise is, we can look at fetch. Fetch is a very interesting method since you can perform a network request without reloading the page, and it always returns a promise. So let's look at the first parameter called resource. This is typically a URL. In this case, this is fake JSON data. And if no second parameter is provided, the method will be get by default. So you just here want to read the data. You will first contact the server with fetch. Then the server will respond, in this case, with a JSON string. So you have to pass the JSON string into JavaScript object. And then we will console log the data. So you will get JavaScript object. You can very easily read the value with, for example, data.completed, which will return false, or data.id, which will return 1. I've made a previous video about reading value in an object if you need to know how to read value. The second parameter in it is an object containing any custom settings. This is an optional parameter. It is composed of a method, headers, body, mode, etc. So here we will use the method post, but all the information sent, this is important to notice, they have to be in JSON notation. So here we are sending the body and headers. We're going to transform all our key value in the body in a JSON string. So we are using to use JSON.stringify and then pass the key value you want. So title, body, user ID. The headers also have to be in JSON string. Then we will wait the server to respond and pass the information in a JavaScript object, and we will then console log the value. There is an alternative notation using async and await. The goal here is to transform an asynchronous call into a synchronous looking code. So you are going to use await, the await keyword. You can only use await if a promise is returned. This will be the case with fetch. So the variable response will wait for the fetch request to be completed. Then the variable data will wait the response and will pass the JSON string into a JavaScript object. And then you will console log the information. Async means that the function returns a promise. So here we are going to translate the new promise with the async keyword. We can even skip the two parameter, resolve and reject. We are going to wrap the resolve and reject within a try catch. Then the variable result will call the function promise and will wait for the results. And then we will console log the information.